Chris Brown, Steve Tasker, One Bills Live is the show, and pleased to be joined now by the man from Good Morning Football that we all know and love, one Kyle Brandt, joining us. Kyle, from the euphoria of the wild card round and pure perfection to the gut-wrenching, heart rip-out, stomping, Charlie Brown, rain cloud following life that we live here in Buffalo, it has all come to an end.
It has, in glorious yet devastating fashion. It was that's some kind of ride, guys. It really was. I just built the last touchdown to Davis, and I'm just like, light the cigar, send the tweet, start the party, and then your whole life turned upside down in a few mind-boggling plays. Crazy way to end, and yet there's this sort of uplifting thing sort of at the end, that the future is so bright and the talent is so good. And it was just so cool to be involved in that game. But I think it stops right there. And that was no other way to sell it. A devastating loss with just a splash of controversy at the end too.
Yeah, it was fun. And I know this too. The reason, and I said it 3 years ago or whenever it was, when the Chiefs lost in overtime to the Patriots in the same building, when Mahomes never got a shot to come out, they wanted to change the rules then because of the same thing. You got these two guys. And I think one of the reasons, people are starting to talk about, they're talking about changing the overtime rules. It's unfair, is because you don't ever want that game to end. That's why we watch football. I mean, just sit there and watch that touchdown drive after touchdown drive with less and less and less and less time on the clock. And it was like, I keep telling, it was like heroin, and I was a junkie, man. Just shoot it in my vein. It was awesome. It was awesome.
I know. And it's, the game's been replaying on NFL Network, and I turned it on for just a couple minutes, and all of a sudden, Steve, I was with you. I was riding that train again, and I felt like some sort of junkie, but then I had to turn it off because I know how it ends. And look, if you're a Chiefs fan, can you imagine? They're standing there and saying, like, we took your best punch. We took it. We took everything you had. And somehow, by some crazy 13-second long miracle, we still won. And I guess if you're looking for silver linings, there's every motivational poster, every motivational tweet, every T-shirt, every piece of merchandise for the next 8 months for Buffalo is 13 seconds, 13 seconds. That's where we were, and that's where we got to get back. Because, Brian, I know you've been thinking about this. Someone asked me, like, for the Bills, where do they go from here? What can they possibly say? They had the quarterback who's never been playing better. The defense was surging with confidence coming off New England. They started to run the ball a bit. They were just doing everything. If not now, if they couldn't beat them then, when will they beat them?
Right.
And it's fair and it's valid. The only thing I can come up with is that you got to play that game in Buffalo. You got to play the game in Buffalo. And that's the only other thing they could do better. Sure, you could add a player or two or whatever, but man, you get Trey White, sure. But play the game in Buffalo has got to be a goal for the Bills next year.
Right.
Yeah, I think
and
so,
I forgot to mention this at the top. We appreciate you wearing black for us today. Because
Funeral.
This entire community is still in mourning. We've been therapists essentially for the last 48 hours, and it only continues. And I think the reason why, Kyle, this is my theory anyway. Last year, this team rolls people at the end of the season. They're 13-3. They're hosting playoff games for the first time in 25 years. COVID has kept everybody apart. This team kept the community literally together. It was a enormously enjoyable ride, and they just enjoyed it for as long as it went. This year, because of last year, those expectations were through the roof, and then they play the perfect game that you were at and witnessed in full spectacle. It only ratcheted up the expectations even more going into the title bout. It was Ali Frazier 2. I mean, or 3, which I pick your Ali Frazier bout. I don't care which one it is. And then when you come out on the short end, I mean, for a Western New York community that knows disappointment, maybe better than any other pro sports fans, they had to, they were subjected to it again. And people were telling me, it felt like we lost the Super Bowl, even though it wasn't. That's what it felt like. That's how palpable it was for Bills fans.
It felt like we were watching the Super Bowl. I still couldn't believe that was a divisional round game. as much as we love this Joe Burrow and everything, I still can't believe that he gets to go to the title game and one of these teams has to go home. It feels odd. And for me, listen, we've talked about this before. Grew up in Chicago in the 80s and 90s. So everything comes back to Jordan for me. And this could go one of two ways. In the Jordan era, there's a list of guys. You could rattle them off. Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, John Stockton, on and on. And they just never got a title because Jordan was too Jordan. He was just too, you in, throw him in. If you look at Patrick Mahomes as the Jordan, if that's your perspective, and then say, sorry, wrong era, they're too good and they're too powerful at home. Or the other way that I choose to look at it is Jordan couldn't beat the Pistons. He just couldn't do it. The bad boy Pistons and Isaiah Thomas, and Rick Mahorn, and Mark Aguirre, and Bill Laimbeer, year after year, it was these great regular seasons, and Jordan was amazing, and they'd run into the Pistons and they would lose. Eventually, he just said, I'm going to be undeniable, and we're going to build a slightly better team, and I'm just going to kill myself to beat these guys. And he swept them. So that's how you have to look at it. You can say, oh, man, wrong era, wrong conference. Mahomes is amazing. Or you can say, the hell with that. We're going to finally get over this wall. If Jordan can do it, Josh can do it.
Yeah, and I'll say this, too. Over the last year, the Bills and Chiefs have played 3 times. Mm-hmm. The Chiefs have scored 100 points. The Bills have scored 98.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's that. And I said this even after last year's 18-point loss or 16-point loss to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. They're not that far away. They can beat that team. Mm-hmm. They proved it in the regular season. They came in and they bludgeoned them. They came out this last game, and this is one of those like the rubber match, right? Who's going to win this game? And man, oh man, what a phenomenal game it was. Whether it's the bounce of the ball, a play here, a play there. And look at the 2 quarterbacks. There is like zero difference between those 2 guys. They are unbelievable. So, yeah, I think if you can get that game in Buffalo, it's a different result. If you're going to still play them in Kansas City, where they play them again next year, I'll predict it. Opening weekend, one of the primetime games is going to be Pat Mahomes against Josh Allen.
Definitely.
Opening weekend, I'll tell you that right now.
Definitely.
So, there's no reason to shy away from it or think, wow, we'll never get over that hump. Listen, they're there. And the Chiefs, for all the problems the Bills have, the Chiefs have the same kind of problems. They're the same team now. Despite the fact that the Chiefs have won 2 important games, the Bills are there. And there's no reason to run scared from anybody. Certainly you build your team to beat the best teams, but I think the Bills did that. They didn't beat them with speed, and I told this to Brownie. They can score with those guys. And that's how you got to beat him right now.
Remember when we used to talk about Sugar High Josh Allen? Like that guy's gone. That just Sugar High Josh Allen was a joke that the moment would get too excited for him and he'd, wet the floor like a Labrador just because he had too much adrenaline. He was this childlike thing. There was not a trace of that guy on Sunday night. We saw the fully developed, cold-blooded killer. I mean, even there were so many times when you thought, oh man, they might be screwed. This might be it. When he almost got sacked and dumped it to Singletary for that big loss at the end of the game, and I think that gave him the 4th and 14.
Yeah.
You're like, well, they'll knock the pass down and the Bills are going to lose. No, just another bullet through the air. There's nothing that could have stopped them. The only thing that stopped them is he called bleeping tails instead of heads, and then we'll see you next year.
Right. Yeah.
You mentioned Jordan, and I get why. Growing up a Knicks fan, that still hurts. But in any event, yeah. I want to ask you this because, as you know, for the longest time, there was only one Jordan in the entire league. Nobody could come close to him. Nobody could match him. People would say Clyde Drexler. I mean, give me a break.
Sure.
So with Mahomes and with Allen, can there be 2 Jordans in this league? Are they that close?
They appear to be. And Brownie, before I even answer that, the legend has it that if you go to Madison Square Garden in the middle of the night, Charles Davis is still trying to put that basket in.
Charles Smith.
He's still doing it.
Yeah.
Charles Smith. He's still getting blocked.
Yes.
He's still
Thanks
getting
for that.
stripped. He's doing it all these years later.
I'm sure he
Charles
wasn't
Smith.
fouled on any of those.
They blocked his shot 27 times in a row. That poor guy.
Without any contact at all.
Hey, it was a different league. They let him play back then.
Yeah,
NBA, no babies allowed. But to answer your question, I think that we came out of that game, and never mind me, never mind you guys, anybody watching that game in Seattle or Chicago or Texas, Allen looked every bit Mahomes equal. He really did. He didn't make the mistake. His running was ridiculous. His passing was ridiculous. And, I still don't think that he has a Tyreek. And I still don't think he has Kelsey. He's got good players around him. But he still doesn't have absolute weapons of mass destruction, especially with the role that Diggs was minimized to. So we were talking about this at the table actually yesterday in Good Morning Football. And almost identically, I think we were talking about Michael Jordan again. And was this the dueling Spider-Man game? Was this Jordan versus Jordan? Or was it, Jordan versus Dominique? Every once in a while, someone would come up, like a Drexler you mentioned, and they would say, this is the next Jordan. This is Jordan's equal. I remember Dominique's brother, Gerald Wilkins, was the Jordan stopper. I mean, that was embarrassing.
Yeah,
that's not Josh Allen. Josh Allen's been in the playoffs year after year now. He's been to a title game. He's destroyed the Patriots in a playoff game. I came out of that thinking, man, they lost. But, I think Josh Allen was Mahomes' equal. He doesn't have the resume he does. Right. But right now he has the game.
I think what gives Bills fans just a wee bit of consternation, I think there is supreme confidence that this team will be back again. But if you look at NFL history, like the Brady Manning thing, it took Manning 6 times to finally beat Brady. If that can't happen here in Buffalo, we won't have anybody left. People will be jumping off of bridges and stuff. I don't know if they can handle that.
I'll say this, though. That game in Kansas City, Josh Allen and Mahomes looked the same way. I mean, they look like a football version of John Wick. I mean, like the boogeyman. I mean, you just can't get both these guys. I mean, you got to drive a stake through their heart. And just unbelievable. Just absolutely unbelievable. So it's going to be a lot of fun going forward with what we can see out of both these players and the franchise and the players around them. And it's just a bummer that we got a long off season here in Buffalo to wait until it happens again. And we're subject to Mahomes at least for one more week, probably a couple more weeks. But it's fun. I mean, it's really fun.
Well, listen, it's so fun. And I've never had more fun watching a football game as an adult than I did watching the Bills-Chiefs the other night. But I think we're saying, okay, Allen proved he's Mahomes equal. Great. Now what to pay attention to is just, okay, you got the superstar quarterback. He looks amazing. He says the right things. He does the right things. Who is around him? Who is going to be the rest of the people on this team moving forward? Because, God, sitting here saying, we're going to have a shot at this every single year, you think, name a passer. There's a million guys. Marino never got back. Rodgers never got back. Those guys are the best people to throw football ever. And they just don't sniff the thing ever again because of a combination of bad luck, bad beats, and maybe sometimes bad rosters. So great. Right. You got Josh Allen. That is not a free pass to the title game or even the divisional round every single year. This is when you really hunker down if you're the front office and say, we got Josh. Now, what are we missing? Because I thought that was last year. I thought that was, we're going to build a team to beat the Chiefs, and they tried. But there's still just something missing, as small as it may be. So that becomes now the question.
We've had this conversation. I think the thing that has set this administration, this GM and coach apart and the way they run things, they never ask what they're missing. What they've asked, and continually throughout their whole build through the 5 years, is we're getting better everywhere no matter what. We're not just going to re-sign a couple of good offensive linemen that played well for us last year. We're signing their replacements as well, and they're going to compete. They have really every season, every offseason, they have attacked it on over. They brought Mitch Trubisky in as a number 2 or 3 overall pick as a backup. Nobody missed a beat because, hey, Josh is the guy. Yeah, fine. There's a lot of quarterbacks that don't handle that real well. But they're bringing guys in, and that's one of the things that has elevated the Bills in the offseason and helped them to stay competitive is that who had a really good year? Oh, Dawson Knox. Yeah, we're signing Zach Ertz this offseason. Yeah. We're going to trade for this guy. Well, nobody sleeps anywhere on this roster, and I think it's really paid dividends in games like this last one.
What were you going to say, Brownie?
I was going to say this front office also asks, where is the league going? They try to stay ahead of the curve in terms of where it's going. And Coach McDermott had a season wrap-up press conference today, and I asked him a question, as fundamentally sound a defense as you might have, it gets compromised when you're playing elite speed like that. Do you need to add speed to your roster? And he pretty much said, yeah, it's a valid point. We absolutely have to, because you could play the best, most assignment sound defense ever, but your angle of entry on defense could be perfect to make a tackle. That guy's 10 yards down the field because he's just too damn fast.
I know. Well, so to that point, the season's been over for 2 days. It's time to start asking the question. Watching that game, if you could have snapped your fingers and added an impact player at any position, I wonder what the consensus there is in Western New York. From my opinion, I felt like there were 30 plays in that game where they almost had Mahomes and they almost sacked him, and he would do one of those wiggle spin things or duck under it and then get out and throw for a first down. I felt like they just needed one more pass rusher. I know they've tried and they drafted Groot, and I get it. Pass rusher for me. What's the consensus for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, can you reincarnate Darryl Green at age 24? I'll take that. You know what I mean? Give me one of those guys. And what the hell? Put Champ Bailey on the other side. I mean,
I think you got to. Yeah,
give me some pure speed back there.
It's interesting too because the Bills have drafted 3 pass rushers over the last 2 years, 4 defensive linemen over the past 3 years,
with their top picks.
And I would agree. Big guys, big athletic guys are the hardest athletes to find because they're hard. There's not that many of them. There's a lot of great athletes that even guys that are undrafted, great athletes at the cornerback, as safety, linebacker spots, but size and athleticism to that degree is rare. It's rare. And that's why you got to spend high draft picks getting guys like that, both on the offensive line side of the things and the defensive line side of the things. And I think the Bills are right there again. I think they'll spend their draft picks there as well because those guys are just harder to find, as we've seen. Now, and here's the thing I'm saying. Even with they saying that, Tyreek Hill's a unicorn. I mean, there's nobody that can catch that guy. And it's so, yeah, I mean, you can start to revamp and everything like that, but just remember this. The Bills had every reason to think they're going to win that game. So it's not like they're doing anything wrong or their process has been wrong or their draft philosophy has been wrong. They're going to be fine, but they still got to grind it. I mean, they still got to keep on keeping on. But I like where they're at. I'm very hopeful for the future, and I'm glad, too, that, everybody now, not just us, thinks Josh Allen is that guy.
Yeah, nobody's doubting anymore. Kyle, last question I have for you, because we all know how there are new kids on the block with each passing year. With the AFC quarterbacks that are, maturing, getting better. You see Joe Burrow in the AFC title game this weekend. I think Herbert's going to be on the come next year, and that team, with a couple more moves, probably gets in the playoffs. The Chiefs are still the measuring stick, but who in your mind do you think a team like the Bills may have to also look out for next year in the AFC?
Well, it ain't the Jets, and it ain't the Dolphins, and apparently it's not the Patriots right now. Listen, it's hard not to be absolutely fascinated by Joe Burrow. Never mind never mind when he beat KC, which was awesome, or all the things he's done with Chase. This dude taking 9 sacks and just getting up and not giving a damn and getting up and throwing for big throws to set up a winning field goal in a playoff game. You get hit 8, 9 sacks. At best, some of your throws are coming up a little short. You're kind of watching the rush. At worst, you're quitting. You're screaming at linemen. You're saying, this is a joke. Get me out of here. He did none of that. And a lot of guys can throw, and a lot of guys are big and fast. Like, I just can't believe the demeanor that he has. This guy is so calm. I feel like he should be on some kind of watch list or something. He has like a Dexter factor to him. I can't believe that he is as calm as he is. So the AFC North is always up and down. Baltimore, and who knows what's going to happen in Pittsburgh. But watch this dude this weekend. I don't know if he's going to win yet, but his pulse just doesn't bounce, and you can't coach that. And I'm really impressed.
I think the league's sitting in particularly the AFC conference, sitting in a fantastic spot. You got a lot of fun guys to watch. Josh, Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence. We haven't even seen the best of him yet. Of course, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, all of the guys. It's really fun to watch these young players and how successful it is. Do you think there's too much offense in the league and they're kind of saying like defense doesn't count anymore? I'm starting to feel that dot on the horizon of like, this looks a little too easy.
Well, the 49ers just won 13-10 in Lambeau Field. So we got hope for us, guys. We just saw the MVP put up 10 points in the snow. There's still a couple old soldiers out there, Tasker, who can really knock you around. And maybe one gets to the Super Bowl this year.
Maybe.
Kyle, it's been enormous fun with you this year. Great to meet you. Obviously, just a couple of weeks ago to finally get that checked off the list. It was a pleasure. Your appointment listening and viewing for our Western New York peeps up here that watch our show. So thanks for doing it. We appreciate it. Hope we can hit the reset button next fall.
Guys, thank you. It's been years of this now. This one was really special. I finally got to meet you. I feel like in the sports media world, you guys are family for me, and everyone in Buffalo has been so incredibly generous and kind and welcoming. And I wish the season had lasted a couple more games, but it's been a great, great ride, and I cannot wait to take it next year. And as we end every segment, I will end with a prediction. Week 1 of the 2022 season, Buffalo 27, Kansas City 10 in Arrowhead. Take that.
No, Arrowhead. Look at that. Wow. Okay. Well, that's one to grow on. Thank you,
All
Kyle.
right, man. Thanks,
we'll catch
Kyle.
up with you
See
down
you
the
guys.
line.
Take care.